Welcome to the Leverton on Everything podcast, where I, Leverton, review everything in under 10 minutes daily. Today I'm going to talk about a documentary kind of true crime series called Missing, Dead or Alive, 2023 till present. I gave it 2 out of 10 stars, and I said, not staged but problematic. I just read the featured review, and it was claiming that the show was staged. Unlike the featured review, I watched the whole series, and I do not think that it was staged. I think Netflix went into this little town and said, "We will give you X amount of money if you allow us to insert ourselves to a ridiculous degree into the criminal justice process." If it was staged, I don't think this would have been so egregious. But they do film people who are having the worst moments of their lives, some of whom are the subjects of criminal investigations. So it seems like the presence of these cameras does little to increase the chances of objectivity and the law being followed. The filmmakers want us to feel compassion for the people who undergo these situations and the law enforcement officers who have to try and solve these cases and the mental and physical toll it takes on them. However, it would have been much less ethically problematic if they had indeed done reenactments. It did get me to thinking about one question, which is in a lot of these cases, charges are dropped because the victim doesn't want to press charges. And for me, that doesn't make any sense at all, that the victims would be given such power in the criminal justice system, for the simple fact that two of these charges that I mentioned are quite serious: kidnapping, and the other is an attempt to defraud someone out of their property. And that last episode ends with this sort of optimistic music and the feeling that everything is okay, but the person who tried to sell the property is still in control of the property, and he has not been in charge of any crime. So you get the feeling he's just going to find a different way to do this. I just went down a rabbit hole trying to see if victims can drop charges against people who have been accused of crimes, and apparently in the United States they cannot. The prosecution who decides whether a case will go to trial. It's the prosecution who decides whether a case will go to trial, and usually it's based upon the ability for witnesses to be called. In the two cases I mentioned, the primary victims would not have to testify at all because the facts of the case could be established without their testimony. So this documentary series tries to advocate for victims and the law enforcement establishment, and ends up confusing people who watch it about the law, which I don't think is a great look. Yeah, so I didn't like that. Missing, Dead or Alive. You know what I do like? I do like making podcasts, and I have a bunch of them. I have Death by Disney, which is a Disney review podcast. I watch all Disney movies. I have a podcast with my son, the Everything and More Etc. podcast, and I have a podcast about politics called Leverton on Politics. So check one of those out. I'm sure I have something for everyone in my podcasting empire. Bye.